McGraw-Hill Professional presents Own the AI Revolution. Unlock your artificial intelligence strategy to disrupt your competition. Written by Neil Sahota and Michael Ashley. Narrated by Doug Greene. Forward. Are you prepared for the digital earthquake, tornado, hurricane, and tsunami all wrapped into one about to engulf our world? If you've read the headlines, you know that artificial intelligence, AI, threatens to disrupt every domain of human existence. So how can you forecast the stratospheric possibilities and endless opportunities? How can you mitigate the risks? More importantly, how can you avoid the unintended avalanche of consequences accelerated by AI? It's just impossible to plan for something this big, you might be thinking. Not so. The following pages break through the challenges and implications surrounding AI. Before you read the definitive primer on this fascinating subject, it's my honor and privilege to provide a glimpse of the magnitude of change that's coming. Also, please note, I use the term AI as an umbrella framework encompassing robotics, machine learning, and many types of big data analytics. It's been my honor to keynote, moderate, and guide more than 100 global engagements surrounding this topic recently, impacting more than $10 trillion of U.S. investment in alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Whenever speaking, I always try to present myself as the only chairman, founder, board member with roles in business, finance, venture capital, serial entrepreneurship, global computer science, history-making UN innovative programs, top industry organizations, think tanks, and summits. Such an interdisciplinary perspective informs my assertion that Own the AI Revolution must be read now by today's business leaders or others who want to participate in the revolution. Believe me, your fortunes and those of your descendants depend on your understanding and putting to good use the information contained in this book. Still unconvinced that your business is tied up in AI? Let's do the math. Into 2019, AI infiltrated every industry and is being adopted into small and mid-sized organizations. Countries such as Finland are challenging 1% or more of their populations to be AI educated. AI will increase to $20 trillion in wealth creation and impact, integrating more than 1 trillion sensors through the Internet of Things, all within 15 years. Moreover, AI is the centerpiece of what's been termed the Fourth Industrial Revolution and Second Machine Age. This movement is now Society 5.0, or what I call the Fifth Machine Age Unlimited X Revolution, 5MUX for short. We stand at a unique moment in world history, an inflection point out of which we shall witness an unprecedented growth of economic, cultural, and societal change, the following aspects of which I term the ACCC. Automation, time compression in new innovations, convergence in all domains and existences, ubiquitous connectivity. The underlying catalyst for ACCC is the digital artificial intelligence AI mesh created by the growing deployment of machine learning, or the AI of everything. But AI's rapid advancement and even its ubiquitous presence in our daily lives portends far more than mere technological innovation for its own sake. AI is already exhibiting a potential to yield exponential overlapping amplification of value to a myriad of interrelated sectors, including government, industry, media, and education. Even so, a growing wariness surrounding the negative unintended consequences for society, economic development, and prosperity will increase as long as people view it as a threat. To counter such concerns and better gauge the global impact of AI throughout all aspects of industry, it's helpful to review a matrix of the types of innovation AI is rampant in, such as the development phases of concept, the source of ideation and exploration of new ideas; research and development, R&D, the stage in which ideas convert into proof of concept; transfer, proof of concept commercializes into working products and services; production and deployment, the production of commercial products and services scaling for distribution; usage, consumers and end users find more value in products and services; AI, coupled with machine learning, promises positive structural reorganization when it comes to business and organizational models. To better witness AI in action, it's helpful to understand how it will bring new and improved innovation in the following areas: products, services, organizational models, operational processes, social media outreach. However, as I said, to simply view AI through the business lens is to mistake its full potential. AI is different from any other tool mankind has developed in its short tenure of this planet. Humans won't just employ artificial intelligence, they will be shaped by it. They will be transformed by the technology. Various thought leaders interviewed for this book, including Peter Diamandis, Ben Goertzel, and David Hansen, have suggested we are witnessing the dawn of transhumanism, in which we evolve our physical and mental faculties far beyond our current levels through biological integration with AI. Likewise, leading proponents witnessing this change envision humanity splintering into 4 categories under the banner of what I call CASTLE: classic, augmented, synthetic, artificial life. 1. Classic. Represented currently by 7.3 billion of us, this is the modern form of our species, which has existed for tens of thousands of years. 2. Augmented. Those individuals augmented by technological wearables and implants. Full disclosure, I am augmented, and am a founding member of a think tank created by a top 5 corporation in which augmented humans participate. 3. Synthetic. New forms of life where the genome for the species is artificially produced suggest a new version of humans will be possible within 15 years. At the same time, human cloning is possible, as well as embryonic inheritable genetic editing. 4. Artificial life. Early AI children, evidenced by humanoid robots or avatars hinting at what is to come. These individuals will be able to accelerate their development and knowledge through a mind cloud. If the above section didn't boggle your brain just a bit as to what's possible through AI, perhaps it's worth taking a stroll down the future lane, contemplating life in the year 2030. Timestamp 2030.07.14. It's time to wake up, Sue, says FIA, acronym for Financial Intelligent Agent. You weren't sleeping well. Your happiness quotient is lower today. Would you like to sleep an extra hour and we'll talk again at 9 a.m.? Sue says yes and sleeps until her scheduled meeting. By the time 9 a.m. arrives, she is dressed, drinking a cappuccino, which her smart kitchen began brewing for her the moment she exited the shower. Now ready to face the day, Sue listens to FIA through a mind interface. While you were sleeping, I performed a self-upgrade, enhancing my participation in a 360-degree holistic view of your life. This helps me improve your well-being and your financial status, a top priority for you. Sue nods her head as she sips her drink and stares out the window. I am making continual micro-adjustments to your investment portfolio based on dynamic trends being monitored on a continuous 24/7 basis, FIA continues. I am redistributing your savings through micro-auctioning to the top 10 ranked services for best spot interest rates. Sue suddenly realizes she forgot to schedule a flight to her nephew's birthday party next month and thinks her concern. Also, no need to fret over missing little Tommy's get-together. I examined your calendar and through UIA, United Intelligent Agent, I booked flights for August 20th at the lowest rates. Woo, thank you, FIA. Also, I am sensing a 90% probability for a high flu outbreak in Amsterdam when you arrive. Using IIA, Insurance Intelligent Agent, I was able to negotiate spot health insurance for the 23.3 hours of risk. That's smart. No use in paying for the whole weekend if I don't need it. Next, I booked you an autonomous rental car with the best safety record, thus the lowest insurance. You can call him Sam. Your hotel is handled the same way through their intelligent agents, IAs. Perfect. And just so you know, I will handle via IAs all of the fund transfers and payments with the best negotiated lowest fees. From my analysis of your thought patterns, I know you worry about this. We can get all this information in one place, updating continuously with the best deals and rates, lowest fees, no minimums, and no overhead infrastructure since it is all virtual. Fia knows Sue only too well. A worrier, she is concerned about the costs. But best of all, Sue, you and I can go through everything together using embedded, augmented, and virtual reality, so there will be no surprises. Good. You know how I feel about surprises. By the way, your health index is down to 94.2, says Fia. Fia senses Sue's biometrics go on high alert. But no need to worry. I will ensure the needed supplements get added to your meal plans today when ordering via RIA, Restaurant Intelligent Agent. Your life index is also down to 102.4, so I will make a gene adjustment via the nanobots. Concurrently, I will ensure micro-adjustments to your retirement savings plan and life insurance via IAs. Sounds good, says Sue, grabbing her things to head out the door. And just so you know, your work schedule today entails devising multiple project bids on creative design with robot guides. Sue thanks Fia at the same time that updates are implanted in her memory from Fia via direct neural communication. She is now ready to face her day. So, madness or reality? Though the above scenario may seem far-fetched, the necessary elements are already here, projecting out just to 2020, all based on an AI foundation. Just try to imagine what the year 2030 will look like. It may seem impossible, but already brain signatures exist for predicting emotions, thoughts, words, and images, as well as new theories for explaining consciousness. Likewise, labs are experimenting with direct brain interfaces and implantable neurodevices, injectable nanochips, brain modulation and recordings, and advanced computer chips modeled on human brains. Smart sensors using big data analysis can also predict climate, disease, crime, political, and economic trends with more than 80% reliability and provide prescriptive tactics. It's only a short matter of time before our forecasting abilities improve to godlike levels inconceivable just a generation ago. Still, despite so many beneficial opportunities for the progress of humanity, danger lurks. The propensity for discriminatory bias looms large, whether it involves hiring decisions, police profiling, or insurance underwriting. Autonomous weapons systems threaten countries the world over, endangering the relative state of peace the globe has enjoyed in the more than 70 years since the end of World War II. Besides these concerns, one of the most vexing issues to consider is how so much innovation will impact the future of the workforce. The latest data suggest a net employment increase, though jobs will change. Similar to how the Internet created industries people couldn't imagine in 1990, AI will generate professions we can't imagine today. Overall, the effect will be a net positive. In the years to come, productivity is likely to skyrocket, and we'll end up with a much richer society than we can possibly imagine. Have I piqued your curiosity so far? I hope so. These are just a fraction of the many themes and questions the AI revolution addresses. It is my firm belief this book is needed now more than ever to prepare not just the savvy business person for what's coming, but also the savvy citizen of Earth who dares to wonder what will come next. Stephen Ibaraki. Introduction. Artificial intelligence is the stuff of nightmares, or so many people believe. In 2017, shortly before his death, the celebrated British physicist Stephen Hawking, the man who postulated the existence of black holes and wrote the international bestseller A Brief History of Time, warned that the development of artificial intelligence could be the worst event in human history, noting that without proper safeguards, we could conceivably be destroyed by it. This same year, billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, the man behind the Tesla electric auto company, SpaceX, and PayPal, warned, "With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon." Mankind's fear of intelligent machines traces its history at least as far back as 1818 and the publication of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This seminal tale of a scientist who imbues dead tissue with life, only to be killed by his creation, became the template for every technology-run-amok story told in print or on celluloid for the next 2 centuries. The 1920 play R.U.R. by Czech writer Karel Čapek was not only one of the first works of 20th century literature to depict a revolt of mechanical slaves against their human masters, it also introduced the word robot to the English language. In 1968, science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke and director Stanley Kubrick introduced us to HAL 9000, the soft-spoken, ultimately homicidal AI in 2001: A Space Odyssey. A couple of decades later, writer-director James Cameron gave his fictional Skynet computer network control of America's atomic weapons in 1984's The Terminator, only to have the system become self-aware and turn the Earth into a blasted radioactive wasteland. The 2015 film Ex Machina featured an intelligent android in female form learning to use empathy, guile, and sensuality to secure freedom from her brilliant but egotistical creator. Currently, HBO's original series Westworld vividly depicts the lethal chaos that ensues when robots created for human amusement decide they will no longer live as slaves. As essential as evil AI is to science fiction, the popular depiction of artificial intelligence as something dangerous and malevolent does the field a serious disservice. After all, the scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs working to develop artificial intelligence certainly aren't doing so to fulfill some twisted doomsday fantasy, but because they see this technology as a means to better the human condition. For example, imagine if a computer could review a patient's medical tests and instantly produce an accurate diagnosis, serve as eyes for the blind and vision impaired, act as a personal therapist, demonstrating all the emotional intelligence of a trained psychologist, accurately translate nuance and meaning between multiple languages in real time, provide expert legal advice in seconds, serve as a digital personal assistant, doing everything from booking theater tickets to cooking meals based on voice commands, accurately predict stock market activity based on the socio-political zeitgeist, find your perfect mate. Sounds like science fiction again, doesn't it? But guess what? All of these amazing services are available right now due to advances in artificial intelligence. AI is already with us, and there's not a runaway killer robot in sight. In the coming chapters, we're going to explore where AI stands today, apart from its science fiction roots, exploring the potential this revolutionary technology has to make monumental changes in the way every one of us works, plays, and even, yes, thinks, through better understanding of what AI is and what it is not. Hopefully, we can shed our pop culture-fueled fears and learn to embrace a technology promising to be as revolutionary as the invention of agriculture, the harnessing of steam, the mastery of electricity, and the splitting of the atom. Section 1. The AI Frontier. Chapter 1. Who could have imagined? On the morning of Tuesday, September 11, 2001, the Western world's complacency was shattered when 2 hijacked commercial airliners slammed into Towers 1 and 2 of New York's World Trade Center, soon reducing the iconic monoliths to piles of smoking rubble. Minutes later, a 3rd hijacked airliner, American Airlines Flight 77, nosedived into the western side of the Pentagon in Alexandria, Virginia, demolishing a good section of the building's outer ring and the Naval Command Center within. 45 minutes later, a 4th jetliner, United Flight 93, also believed to have been headed for Washington, crashed in a field in Somerset County in southwest Pennsylvania after its passengers, wise to their captors' intentions, rebelled and overwhelmed the 4 hijackers who had taken command of the cockpit. In all, more than 3,300 people lost their lives in these 4 related terrorist incidents. In the months following, government spokespeople often cited a lack of imagination among Defense and Intelligence Department agencies for failing to anticipate an attack of this nature, often saying, Who could have imagined such a thing happening? Ironically, imagination was not the issue. For at least a decade, Hollywood screenwriters had concocted numerous scenarios in which terrorists had commandeered civilian vehicles, including commercial airliners, converting them into weapons of mass destruction. Perhaps the most infamous of these prescient scenarios was writer-producer Chris Carter's pilot episode for his X-Files spin-off The Lone Gunman, which climaxed with a commercial airliner being remotely hijacked and flown straight into the World Trade Center as part of a bogus false flag terrorist attack, only to be diverted at the last possible second by the gunman's heroic actions. The episode aired on March 4, 2001, a mere 6 months before the same scenario played out in real life, with a tragic ending. That same summer, analysts within the U.S. intelligence community, having intercepted troubling communications between al-Qaeda cells throughout Europe and America, submitted a report to President George W. Bush titled, Bin Laden Determined to Strike Inside the United States. The report was summarily ignored. Who could have imagined such a thing happening? Indeed, failing to ignore warnings of disaster is, of course, no new phenomenon. Greek mythology tells us of Cassandra, daughter of the king and queen of Troy, who, after offending the god Apollo, is saddled with an unusual curse. She will possess the power of unfailing prophecy, but her decrees will fall on deaf ears. Ignored at best, disparaged at worst, poor Cassandra's life is doomed to be a never-ending series of avoidable defeats and maddening frustrations. It's tough to be right when no one believes you. The Cassandra syndrome lives on with us today, not only in Washington, where warnings of emerging military threats, looming deficits, crumbling transportation infrastructure, leaking entitlement programs, and accelerating climate change are met with, me worry, shrugs, worthy of Mad Magazine's Alfred E. Newman, but also in the boardrooms of America's most powerful corporations. Either leaders lack the tools to predict coming challenges, or, even when they are warned of impending danger, they choose to ignore such admonitions, clinging stubbornly to their previous modes of behavior. It is difficult for people to change their minds, to open themselves up to new possibilities, even when faced with conclusive facts and compelling arguments. Even at the highest levels of business, government, and yes, even science, there is a powerful, almost hardwired compulsion to resist change and meet anything smacking of radical disruption with skepticism, if not outright hostility. The landscape of American business is littered with the bones of companies that achieved great success meeting the needs of a market at a particular time, only to ignore warnings of disruptive technologies, emerging competitors, and changing consumer demands. How many people born in the 21st century have ever heard of the Pullman Company, Woolworths, Marshall Field, Kodak, or even Blockbuster Video? While operating in disparate sectors ranging from transportation to retailing to consumer electronics to entertainment, all these once great American brands had one thing in common. They failed to see the signs of coming disruptions. Even when they did react, they tended to cling to increasingly outmoded ways of doing business until they were either shuttered or absorbed by nimbler and more foresighted competitors. Each of these companies stand as a cautionary tale for what happens to businesses lacking the ability or willingness to sense what's coming and meet the future on its own terms. Although its name is barely known today, the Pullman Company once enjoyed monopolistic control. Founded in the early 1860s by George Pullman of Chicago, the organization made its fortune crafting luxurious sleeper cars during the height of the country's railroad boom. Anyone who traveled cross-country during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, trips often requiring several days of travel by rail, was intimately familiar with Pullman's iconic coaches. In fact, Pullman grew so large and powerful it actually built its own company town on Chicago's South Side, a community where employees lived, worked, shopped, and educated their children all within its municipal confines. However, after World War II, Pullman fell on hard times, when the advent of the interstate highway system and affordable airline travel made city-to-city passenger train service passé. It took nearly 2 decades for passenger train travel to completely fall out of favor with the American public, but even with the future staring it in the face, Pullman made only token efforts to adapt. With demand for its product virtually non-existent, the company finally folded in 1968, just over 100 years after its founding, its name quickly disappearing into the mists of history. F.W. Woolworth is another once great brand virtually unknown to today's younger generation due to its inability to recognize and respond to changing market conditions. Founded in 1878 in Utica, New York, F.W. Woolworth and Company, often referred to as simply Woolworths, was the first of the low-priced general retailers known as five and dime stores. Initially, many of Woolworth's products actually did retail for just 5 or 10 cents. The precursor to Walmart, you could walk into any neighborhood Woolworths with the expectation of buying everything from a pair of pants to a set of glassware to children's toys to gardening tools, all at low discount prices. If you were hungry, you could take a seat at Woolworth's famous lunch counter, where a soda jerk could make you an ice cream soda or fry you up a juicy hamburger. At its peak in the mid-20th century, Woolworths operated more than 800 stores in the U.S. and U.K. and served more meals than any other restaurant in the world, including McDonald's. It also built what was at its time, 1912, the world's tallest office building, for which the company paid in cash. However, in the 1970s, the face of general retailing changed rapidly, with the surge of so-called big-box stores, such as Kmart and Target. At first dismissive of this trend, Woolworths later tried to compete by opening its own big-box chain, Woolco. But it was too little too late. The last Woolworths in the United States closed its doors in July 1997. While the name can still be found on some storefronts overseas, the company, once an American icon, is now just a footnote in the history of American retailing. Marshall Field and Company was another Chicago-based retailing icon that dominated its field for decades, only to fall victim to changes in retailing trends it failed to anticipate. Founded in the mid-19th century, Marshall Field grew to become as synonymous with the Windy City as Macy's was to New York, or Neiman Marcus was to Dallas. Field's flagship State Street store, occupying an entire city block, and distinguished by a dramatic multi-level atrium topped by original Louis C. Tiffany glass skylights, was built between 1891 and 1892 and became a world-renowned model for the modern department store. Its iconic Great Clock at the southeast corner of State and Washington Streets became a Chicago landmark and was immortalized in a famous Saturday Evening Post cover illustrated by Norman Rockwell. However, Field's decline came in two distinct waves, both of which were predictable to anyone paying close attention. The first hit in the 1950s and 60s, as in the boom years following the end of World War II, retail activity moved out of the central city to the expanding suburbs. In reaction, the company opened satellite stores in most major Chicago area shopping centers, but these scaled-down facilities failed to capture the majesty and allure of the original downtown location. Much later, in the 1990s and early 2000s, Field fell victim to the same plague to shutter so many other retail operations during this period, the rise of the Internet. Failing to take e-commerce seriously, Field made only a token attempt to go online. As a result, its income dropped quickly into the red, and the company was ultimately acquired by Federated Department Stores in 2004, which dropped the Marshall Field moniker entirely, renaming it Macy's. Despite passionate protests from longtime Field aficionados, it failed to revive the iconic brand, which now lives on only in the form of the store's famous Frango mint candies. While Woolworths and Marshall Field imploded because they failed to anticipate changes in retail trends, the demise of Rochester, New York-based Kodak can be traced to its myopic executives' refusal to see the future even when handed to them on a silver platter. Since Kodak was for decades the world leader in photographic film manufacturing and print processing, many people assumed the company was killed by the invention of the digital camera. But in fact, Kodak invented the digital camera twice, but then twice decided not to actively pursue this burgeoning technology. Company engineer Steve Sasson created the world's first digital camera in 1975 in Kodak's own R&D facility, but his superiors viewed it as nothing more than an amusing toy. A few years later, company engineers perfected the first megapixel camera, considered a breakthrough in producing sharp, clear photographic print.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?